If your drawings keep getting muddy, the problem probably isn't your pencils or your blending technique. The problem is that you're only seeing a part of each color. If you don't know how to identify all four parts of every color, muddy colors become almost inevitable. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to see every part of a color while I draw this lotus using only 4 colored pencils. The reason that I chose a limited palette for this exercise is that it removes the temptation to hunt for the perfect pencil. When you only have a few colors, you're forced to actually analyze what you're seeing and identify the key characteristics of the color before you mix it. Let's start with the most important part of any color, value. You probably know that value is how light or dark a color is, but have you ever thought about it as the reason that we can recognize an object? Right now, I am only using a black pencil, and within a few minutes, you can already tell that this is a lotus. I could make this flower pink, orange, green, or violet later on, and as long as the values are correct, it will still read as a lotus flower. But on the flip side, if the values aren't working, no amount of color is going to be able to save your drawing. In fact, one of the biggest mistakes that artists make is assuming that color problems are caused by the color itself. More often than not, the real problem is that they're missing the value hidden inside the color. The drawing starts to fill off, so they reach for another pencil, then another and another. They add more pigments, but none of those colors actually address the real problem. Eventually, the colors that are added become overmixed and the relationships become confused. This is when a drawing starts to feel muddy. That's why I almost always begin my artwork with an underpainting like this. It allows me to focus entirely on the values before I start worrying about hue, temperature, or intensity. As I build this underpainting, I'm primarily paying attention to the shadow shapes because those shapes are what create the illusion of three-dimensional form. One thing that you might notice is that I'm keeping this underpainting fairly light, and I'm not trying to get into my very darkest darks yet. Here, I just want to establish where the darker values belong. Value is the first thing that I always look for, but it's definitely not the last. Once this structure is in place, I can start tackling the other 3 characteristics of color. And as you'll see later on in this drawing, that's where some of the most interesting color decisions start to happen. The next characteristic that I'm paying attention to is hue. Hue is simply the family a color belongs to on the color wheel. When most people look at this flower, they see pink petals and green leaves, and they're not wrong. But that information isn't specific enough to help me mix color accurately. This is a CMYK color wheel made from cyan, magenta, and yellow, and the K stands for black. As you see, there isn't just one pink family. There's a true magenta, but then there's a warmer magenta that leans more towards orange, and a cooler magenta that leans towards violet, with countless variations in between. The same thing happens with greens. Some lean more towards yellow, while others lean more towards blue. This is where artists start to see color differently. Instead of simply asking, "What color is this?" I want you to ask, "Which version of the color am I looking at?" And that's where temperature becomes incredibly helpful. Temperature is our third characteristic of color. It describes whether a color feels warmer or cooler compared to the colors around it. A warmer pink might lean slightly towards orange or red, while a cooler pink might lean more towards violet. A warm green would lean towards yellow, while a cooler green would lean more towards blue. As I start adding color to this lotus, I'm constantly looking for these subtle shifts. For example, the petals aren't all the same pink. The areas that are being hit most directly by sunlight do feel warmer in this photo reference, and in the shadows, the pinks feel cooler. Part of that is because the warm sunlight is no longer hitting those surfaces that are turning away. But another part is because there is a cooler reflected light bouncing off the surrounding leaves. Because I'm looking at all of this information and the relationships that are happening within my photo reference, I don't just dive in and make the shadows darker. I'm also making them cooler by introducing my cyan colored pencil. So far, we've talked about the 3 characteristics of color. And while it's useful to understand them as individual concepts, the reality is that they never show up on their own. Value, hue, and temperature are always interacting with one another. As I begin working on this second flower, I've identified that the overall hue of the flower is magenta, so that's my starting point. But almost immediately, I run into a problem. It's very difficult to judge a color in isolation. A magenta on a white background can look completely different once the surrounding colors are introduced. And that's why I start bringing in the surrounding greens so early. Look at the photo reference and take a look at this area behind the flower. Would you describe that green as more yellow-green or more blue-green? What else do you notice about this color? In my limited palette, I don't have a green pencil, so I begin mixing this color with a combination of yellow and blue. And as I keep mixing that green, I'm constantly comparing it back to the petals that I've already established. And this is where color starts becoming so much more about relationships than individual colors. The greens that I make help me decide whether the magenta petal feels warm enough. The petals help me decide whether the green is too blue or too yellow. I'm constantly bouncing back and forth between the flower and the leaves, and I'm building them up together. And all the while, I'm still evaluating value. I'm constantly checking to see if the petal in the foreground is lighter than the leaf behind it, and asking myself if the shadow areas are dark enough. The fourth characteristic of color is chroma. Chroma describes how intense or muted a color appears. At first glance, this lotus feels like a very colorful subject. It might seem like every color in this reference should be highly saturated, but that wouldn't be completely accurate. Chroma exists on a scale or a spectrum, and not every color in this photo is equally intense. As the bright pinks in the petal turn away from the light, many of those pinks become less saturated. The shadows throughout the composition are more muted, and even within the green leaves, there are subtle differences. Those leaves that are closest to us are slightly more intense, while some of the background leaves are softer and less saturated. Those shifts are important because they create variety. If I rendered every color in this drawing with the same high intensity, it would feel really overwhelming, almost like the colors were yelling at the viewer. Here are two student drawings of the same pair. The drawing on the left was completed using a full palette of colored pencils, and it contains very high chroma colors within the pair, with a much more muted background. The drawing on the right was completed with a limited color palette of only 4 colored pencils, and these colors were more muted to begin with. So overall, it's a lower chroma piece. But because all of the relationships are accurate, this piece feels very harmonious. One reason limited palettes can be so powerful is that they force us to pay closer attention to the color intensity instead of constantly reaching for another pencil, hoping that it will be the perfect match. And if limited palettes are something that you'd like to learn more about, stay with me until the end because I have a free resource that you are going to love. Now, let's bring this back to muddy colors. One of the biggest misconceptions that artists have is that muddy colors happen because their colors aren't bright enough. But muddy colors aren't really about low chroma. They're more about inaccurate chroma. When artists aren't sure what's wrong with a color, they often start guessing. They add another pencil, then another, and eventually a complementary set of colors finds their way into the mixture. This results in the chroma getting reduced and the colors will lose their clarity. The result is a drawing that feels dull, lifeless, or muddy. In representational art, the goal isn't necessarily maximum chroma, and it isn't minimum chroma either. The goal is accurate chroma. You will have some colors that are intense and some that will be more muted, and learning to see the difference between high and low saturation colors is one of the biggest steps toward creating really convincing color. At the beginning of this video, I told you that muddy colors usually aren't caused by your pencils. They're caused by the way that you are seeing color. Every color contains 4 pieces of information. Value tells us how light or dark it is. Hue tells us what color family it belongs to. Temperature tells us whether it feels warmer or cooler than the colors around it, and chroma tells us how intense or muted it appears. The next time that you're trying to mix a color, don't stop at the name of the color. Train yourself to find all 4 parts of every color. If you'd like an exercise that will drop you right into practicing this skill, I've put together a free downloadable resource called 3 Pencil Magic. It's a printable sketchbook insert that walks you through a limited palette drawing very similar to what you saw in this video, and it's designed specifically to help you strengthen your color observation skills. You can find the link in the video description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.